Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and today I have got my updated draft to show you guys. A draft so good, I thought about actually keeping it just to myself and keeping it a secret, but then I kind of remembered, that kind of defeats the purpose of your YouTube channel, Dan. You got to share your team, so that's exactly what we're going to do today. And yeah, I'm basically just really happy with it. I think it's really, really interesting. It does pose a couple of different risks, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I think you're going to like it. And if you do, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. But without further ado, guys, let's check out this team because it's amazing. Alright, so 99.5 million spent, 0.5 in the bank. I do like to leave a little bit of money in the bank just in case you want to use those future transfers. You never know when you just want that little bit of flexibility just to get you through. Players have changed in price, for example, and you can no longer afford a player who cost the same amount as your player a few days ago. It happens. So yeah, 0.5 in the bank is never a bad idea. That's what I always say. So you don't have to spend it all. But let's go on to what I have spent my money on. We've got Melier as our first player. Now this one position I'm not totally convinced on yet. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to go with this one yet. I do kind of want the Brentford goalkeeper Raya, but there is obviously a new goalkeeper being signed for Brentford at the moment, so I'm not really sure what the situation is going to be there yet. I will figure it out though, don't worry. But for now, I thought we'd go for Melier, a goalkeeper who has phenomenal fixtures. I think we can go fairly short term on the fixtures at the start of the season, just because we're going to have to use our wild card reasonably early, just because of the situation where we get unlimited transfers during the World Cup. We're probably going to see ourselves using wild cards reasonably early, so think a little bit short term in terms of goalkeepers. And these opening fixtures, we've got Wolves in there, Southampton, Brighton, teams that typically don't score too many goals. So Leeds, a defence that's actually improved a little bit under Jesse Marsch, and a goalkeeper who is getting better every time. Every time I watch Melier, he looks like a better and better goalkeeper. I do really think he's a really good player. I think it could actually be okay, actually not bad. I like the fixtures, I like the player. I don't necessarily like the team and the amount of chances they concede, but maybe Melier picks it up, makes a load of saves, and actually it turns out to be a huge dub. You never know, could be okay. Moving on into defence, we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, a player who has never left any one of my drafts, a player who is basically essential in my opinion. These opening fixtures, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Manchester United, Bournemouth, it looks like there really could be a couple of clean sheets in there. You could get 3 out of 4 clean sheets there quite easily for Liverpool. But the great thing is with these Liverpool fullbacks is they're always involved in the goals as well. So we're talking set pieces, we're talking about crosses, we're talking about passes, we're talking about shooting from range, getting in the box and taking in shots close range as well potentially. All in all, just makes these Liverpool fullbacks absolutely phenomenal and absolutely essential. So should score super highly this season, as they do every single season. And with these opening fixtures for Liverpool, you've got to get in on those Liverpool players. So we are going to be doubling up in the Liverpool fullback positions with Robertson here as well. Same fixtures, same amazing output, but Robertson is arguably even better than Trent, which is something that not a lot of people have picked up on, as his ownership is still under 10%. So not a lot of people going for Robertson. A little bit of a differential there, which I'm very happy about because I'm a person who is very confident in Robertson. I owned Robertson for the second half of last season, and boy did he fare me well. Yes, he did fare me well. Basically, Robertson's second half of last season was the highest scoring defender. So if you look from game week 19 onwards, no one was scoring higher FPL points than Robertson. He just did so well. And if you look at points per game, points per game played, Robertson scores like an average of 1 point more per game than even the second best defender in FPL. Again, going by the stats of the second half of last season. So, if we're expecting Robertson to continue his form from second half of last season, then he's actually going to be the best defender in the game. There you go. I said it, guys. So, potential there for Robertson to score a lot of FPL points. Really good for bonus points. Really good for taking those shots on as well. And I think he could have a phenomenal start to the season. So, really happy with this pick. And I'm so glad not a lot of people have kind of caught on to the fact of just how good Robertson is as an FPL asset. So, very happy about that one. But there's so many Liverpool options. I can kind of understand why people are going elsewhere, I suppose. We've got Laporte next. We're going for Laporte as our Man City defender. No Cancelo. My opinion remains the same on Cancelo. I do believe that Man City are going to sign a left-back, and if Man City do sign a left-back, we're going to see Cancelo's minutes reduced, and we're also going to see Cancelo playing more on the right-hand side, where he doesn't typically get as many FPL points, not typically as involved in the Man City attacking play. So maybe not worth the 7 million, but you never know. Man City could not sign any more fullbacks, and Cancelo suddenly enters the conversation again for me. But for the 1 million saved, I think if Cancelo is not going to be as effective as last season, it might just be worth going for a Laporte, who didn't score that but much worse than Cancelo last season anyway. So I'm pretty nailed on a player who does get a decent amount of chances to score and to get assists from those set pieces and from those kind of set plays that Man City do. Laporte is kind of the target man there, so he scores a decent amount of headed goals and stuff like that. So I think he could be really good. He's better than Diaz in that sense. And I think he should be super nailed on as well at the left centre-back position. Had a phenomenal season last year, of course. So a player who I'm pretty happy with. A corner I'm happy to cut. And you do have to cut some corners if you want to get all of the players you want. This is the corner I'm happy to cut. Next up is Reece James. I did have Chilwell before, but I think maybe I was getting a little overexcited about Chilwell. The thing is about Chilwell is that last season he didn't play many games. So although I did see a lot that I liked from Chilwell, one of the main things I liked about Chilwell was his confidence and his willingness to just shoot constantly. Now, is that a confidence thing? Is the shooting a confidence thing? I would say so, and if so, can I really assume that he's going to take that confidence into this coming season when he hasn't played, hasn't played properly since almost a year ago? It's been a long time, so maybe it's a safer pick to just go for Reece James, who may not have been shooting as much as Chilwell, may not have been in exactly the same kind of shooting positions as Chilwell, but he still was taking a lot of shots, still making a lot of crosses, and still getting into the box, a very large amount. So, assuming that Chelsea remain with a 5-at-the-back formation, we're going to have a look at some of their pre-season games. Assuming they remain in the 5-at-the-back formation, I think I will end up with James as my Chelsea defender. And then finally, let's finish off the defence with Perisic, a player who I'm less confident in than I was before, just because of minutes risk. But I do still think that Perisic will be playing a lot of minutes, a hell of a lot of minutes. But what's more important to me is that Perisic has just got this super high ceiling. So he's one of those players who's maybe, I don't even know if he's high risk, because Conte clearly really wanted this player, and he's just like the perfect Conte player. So he should be starting every game. He should be getting to 60 minutes every game, 70 minutes even, maybe even more. He's incredibly fit. Like, don't let his age deceive you. He's incredibly fit. So, in that sense, if he does get the heights that he can get to, if he goes into a game against one of these teams, Southampton, Wolves, Nottingham Forest, gets a clean sheet, it's totally reasonable. He could also easily get a goal or an assist in these games because he's so attacking and he will be playing so far up the pitch. Then suddenly we're looking at getting 15 pointers from Perisic, and I really kind of want those 15 pointers quite badly, especially for 5.5 million. So maybe a little bit of risk there, but across those first 4 games, you can just smell a couple of 10-pointer pluses in that run, which is exactly what we want. So moving on into midfield, we've got a Mo Salah. He's not going anywhere ever. He is staying in every one of my drafts. He is the first name on the team sheet for me. I think he has to be. Excellent captain option. Always starts the Premier League season incredibly well, especially when he has opening games like Fulham. It's going to be a phenomenal fixture for him, and you can imagine him scoring another 2 goals or 3 goals or something like that in his opening game, and suddenly everyone who hasn't got Salah will be like, yeah, I remember why I usually pick Salah. Maybe I'll pick Salah after all. But yeah, no, I'm going to get ahead of that one, I think, guys, and pick the best FPL asset in the entire game. It's pretty easy to do. Fantastic captain options in all games. I know some people are talking about rotating captains, but if we go by last season, Salah was just good to go as a captain every single game week. Even that Manchester United game, I think you can very easily captain Salah for that game as well. So yeah, perfect captain option. Any game week, doesn't matter, he's good enough to score against even the best teams. That's what he does, and I think he's going to have another really good season as he pushes to, hopefully for him, win the Ballon d'Or. I think he's going for it. I think he's shooting for it. And he can only do that with some top performances, which I'll take for my FPL team. Next one might surprise you a little bit because we have got Jarrod Bowen in our team today. So, yeah, this is an interesting one. Jarrod Bowen is obviously one of my favourite FPL assets. I had him for a lot of last season. And kind of towards the end of last season, because Bowen didn't have any double game weeks at the end of the season, people kind of forgot about Bowen and forgot about, picking him. And he was secretly kind of going under the radar, scoring these ridiculously big hauls, and no one had him because, well, Bowen didn't have any double game weeks. Why would we pick him? But he outscored all of the players who did have double game weeks. So he's an absolute don. He also scored 2 goals against Man City at the end of last season, which is kind of relevant because his opening fixture is against Man City at home, which I think, again, is one of those things that is really putting people off. People are looking at that Man City fixture and thinking, I don't want to pick a player in my FPL team and have to stare at that Man City Game Week 1 fixture. 1, I think Bowen could potentially do okay in that fixture. 2, look at the fixtures after. They're so good. And, your FPL picks are not just for one game week only. They are for a period of game weeks, for several game weeks, for 5 or 6 game weeks typically. And in that sense, Bowen actually looks like he's got a really good run. So, yeah, a player I'm very confident in, a player who I think has been secretly forgotten about, maybe because he's slightly too expensive. That hasn't helped as well. 0.5 more expensive than we probably hoped that he would be, but still a phenomenal FPL asset, one of the highest scoring players last season, a player who ended the last season very well, a player who is the primary goal scoring player in his team, in a top team as well. Everything points towards thumbs up to me. So I think even at this increased price, I still think it's worth a look at Bowen, to be honest. Next up, Martinelli. He's not gone anywhere since the last draft. Still think he's going to be the not nailed on, but kind of playing 90% of games for Arsenal in the left wing position, as he did at the second half of last season. He's still first choice as far as I'm concerned. May rotate occasionally, but primarily Martinelli is going to be playing. I think Jesus is going to make him a better player. It's going to give Martinelli a few more opportunities to score goals, get in the right positions. And Martinelli can score in a range of ways. We've seen that in seasons gone by. We've seen him score from range. We've seen him score headed goals. We've seen him, do more technical dribbles into the box. He can do it all. Great player. 6 million. Can't really go wrong for that price, can you? And then we've got Neto to finish off the midfield. I know a lot of people are not kind of convinced by Neto. I completely understand. It's been a little while since we've seen Neto at his best. He's only really coming back to fitness at sort of the second half of last season. But I think he's a really good player. I think he is Wolves' best player. I think he's Wolves' best attacker. I like these fixtures a lot. I kind of want a Wolves attacker in my team, so it makes sense to try and find one. And, I believe that Neto is the best one, and I believe that Neto has been priced far too cheaply at 5.5 million. His underlying stats are still very good. He didn't play a lot of minutes last season because of that injury, but this season he's going to be coming in, and he's probably going to be the star man for this Wolves team, playing in a 2-man strike force, playing as a left winger. It doesn't really matter. Going back 2 years, people were absolutely raving about Neto. Even not even 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, people were saying this guy's the next big thing. He's going to be absolutely phenomenal. He still has all of that potential, and he's going to come back in and come back to the best that he is. But if you're not convinced by him, if you haven't seen enough of him to convince you, if you've not watched him in the past, for example, and you're not happy with this kind of, I know people are calling it a bandwagon, a YouTube bandwagon to go for Neto, then I completely understand. Don't go for him yourself. That is completely fine. But, those of us who want to go for him, we're going to go for him. And he's at 22% ownership for a reason, because he's pretty good. And then finally, let's finish off the first 11 with Harry Kane. I'm going for Kane over Haaland. I know some people are going to be screaming at me for that. Fair enough. I've made an entire video actually a couple of days ago on Kane versus Haaland and the benefits and drawbacks for going for each of those players. And I kind of ended up that to suit my style of play, I think Harry Kane is the one to go for. Maybe that's going to be different to you, but for me, it's Harry Kane. I do think he's going to outscore Haaland. I think he's going to be more nailed on Haaland and give me less stress and just allow me to just focus on the rest of my team and just have Kane ticking along nicely with his points. So yeah, very happy with Kane. I think Spurs are actually going to have a very good season this year. Looking forward to what they can produce. And under Conte, Kane is kind of producing numbers similar to Salah in terms of how many goals you expect him to get. So if Kane under Conte is doing so well, and he is, and he's got a full pre-season ahead of him, working very, very hard in training under Conte, the Conte pre-season, we're going to expect to see Spurs and Kane off to a much better start than we have seen in previous seasons. He is a player I want. He's a player I think could score very well in games against Southampton, Wolves, Nottingham Forest. Really, really looking forward to seeing what can happen in these games from Spurs. I think they could really do so well. So for me, especially as a player who is lower ownership as well, higher risk, higher reward. I know he's technically the safer player because he's been around a little bit longer, but he's also actually more risky because Haaland has such high ownership. Kane has pretty low ownership at around 15%. What a differential to have. A player who is this good to be this much of a differential is not an opportunity that comes by very often. So I'm thinking Kane for me is going to be the one to go for. Onto my bench, guys. We have got Olsen, 4 million goalkeeper. If we've got to pick a 4 million goalkeeper, I like to try and pick the player I think is most likely to displace the main goalkeeper. And I think because of Martinez's dodgy season at Aston Villa last season, if he was to continue the bad form, I think there's potential for Robin Olsen to come in and displace Martinez. Super unlikely, but fine margins in FPL. We overthink these things, so that's exactly what I've done. We've got Dennis Undav, obviously scored a phenomenal amount of goals and assists in the Belgian league last year, so hoping he'll have a really good season and be the missing piece in the jigsaw for Brighton, and gives me that option. You know, if some weeks I don't really like the look of Perisic or Martinelli or Neto, or if I have an injury or a one-game suspension, but I don't want to make a transfer, it does give me that one backup player that I'm very, very confident in. 5.5 million, pretty cheap as well. Andreas, who is Andreas Pereira, of course, who's now signed for Fulham, 4.5 million, going to be playing, you know, probably every game for Fulham. He's signed to play every game, has had a phenomenal spell in Brazil over the last year where he scored a lot of goals, got a lot of assists, and he's going to be coming into this Fulham team, replacing Carvalho and hopefully getting similar levels of numbers that Carvalho got. So I think that this could be a really, really interesting one, and actually a genuinely good option at 4.5 million, which is not something you get very often. And finally, Sam Greenwood at Leeds United. Played a couple of games last season. Can he break through into the first team of Leeds United? Maybe, maybe not. I guess it's not the worst player to have. If you're just looking for a dead spot, 4.5 million forward, just to stay third on your bench and just remain there and occasionally cover you with a one-pointer if needed, then Sam Greenwood is not the worst player to go for. And there we go. That's the first 11. That's the bench. Let's add a captain's armband to Salah. Of course, we're going to captain Salah in the opening game against Fulham. He's going to do very well, as he always does in the opening game. Vice-captain on Kane as well, because that Southampton game is, certainly very, very interesting indeed for Spurs. Like I say, I'm quite worried about what Spurs actually might do this season. And there we go. I was going to speak about the potential weakness with this team, because I do think there is a potential weakness, and that is the flexibility in this team. I'm not 100% on. Ideally, I would like 2 8 million midfielders, and that's something I still may do. I do still need to think about an actual strategy for the opening game weeks. I've spoken a lot about players. I've spoken a lot about just building a good team, but we also do need to think about strategy at a certain point. It's a little bit more boring, so we'll get to it eventually, but you know, I will share it with you guys. But right now, I'm just enjoying picking the best players, picking the players I love. I love all of the players in this team, and I think I'm confident in all of these players as well, which is something you don't get to say very often. I think this team is just, all of these players should score so well over the opening fixtures. So, fingers crossed, I don't have to rely on flexibility, but in an ideal world, I'd maybe make some downgrades somewhere, upgrade either Martinelli or Neto to another 8 million forward. I could do that by downgrading Reece James, for example. I could do that by downgrading Bowen to an 8 million rather than an 8.5, and I could do that by downgrading Undav to a 4.5 million and just going no one on the bench, basically, other than Andreas Pereira, which could be okay. You know, having Harry Kane kind of does allow me to do that in a way, because Harry Kane is so nailed on, playing 90 minutes every game, compared to someone like Haaland, who may occasionally get benched. I don't actually really need a backup forward, in a sense, really. So maybe I could get away with doing something like that and mixing things up, spreading my budget a little bit more and upgrading one of Martinelli or Neto. That would certainly give me a little bit more flexibility going into game week 1, but that's something I need to think about in terms of strategy. Right now, I just want to pick a team with amazing players in, just look at it and revel in the beauty of it. And my word, this is a beautiful team. In my opinion, anyway. I mean, some of you guys might disagree, but I love it. I love it. Right, there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like this team or this video or whatever, please do leave a like. I really, really do appreciate that. Subscribe if you're new around here and want to follow my journey to see if I can get back-to-back top 1,000 finishes in FPL. I think I can do it. There'll be a few risks along the way, but it'll be a fun journey for sure. I'm really, really looking forward to getting stuck in to the season and just hopefully smashing it again. I mean, it was so fun last year. I want to do it again. Guys, Tuesday, tomorrow, we're going to be doing the Defenders tier list video, since you guys absolutely decimated the like target within like 18 hours or something like that. So yeah, that's going up on Tuesday, and then some more fun videos to come in the following days as well, which won't speak about quite yet, but we'll reveal soon. There we go, guys. Thank you so much once again for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.